it today, Lesson 13. We'll start this lesson by taking the last of our looks back over the ground we've covered so far. You're probably familiar with the routine by now. Read through pages 145, 146 and 147 of your Lesson 13 booklet, repeating the exercises you're asked to play and answering the questions as best you can. If you find that you still have difficulty recognizing some of the notes, pay special attention to the diagrams on page 147, which show all the notes you've played up to now, plus 2 more, printed in red, that you'll be meeting soon. As before, when you've finished going through the reminder pages, restart the tape and you'll hear the answers to the questions. The answer to the first question on page 145 is: a dotted crotchet lasts for 1.5 beats, the same as 3 quavers. And to the second question, in what order do the tones and semitones appear in a major scale? The answer is 2 tones, then a semitone, then 3 more tones, and finally another semitone. As for the names of the degrees of a scale, the first degree is the tonic, the third is the mediant, the fifth is the dominant, and the 7th is the leading note. Finally, turning to page 146, the key signature of the piece in G major should be F sharp. Don't worry if you got some of these answers wrong, but do spend some time now going back over anything you're not sure about. It really will pay dividends later. Our first exercises in this lesson are numbers 125 to 128 on page 148 of your booklet. When you learnt the thumb-under technique, you found out how to move up and down the keyboard by passing your thumb under your third finger or by sliding the third finger over your thumb. But sometimes you'll find you need to use your fourth finger instead of your third. In other words, to pass the thumb under the fourth finger or slide the fourth finger over the thumb. The technique is exactly the same, except that you have to bend your thumb a bit further inwards to make up the extra distance, which can prove a little more difficult. The exercises that follow will give you some practice. Here's exercise 125 for the right hand. Follow the fingering carefully. In exercise 126, you can see that all the B's are in fact B flat. Deliberately so, to show you why we sometimes need to use the fourth finger for the thumb-under technique. If you look at the first bar, you can see that the fourth note is a B flat. Try playing the bar in the usual thumb-under way, and you'll find it's physically impossible to reach B flat with your thumb unless you twist your entire hand out of position. So instead, you play the B flat with your fourth finger, and then bend your thumb inwards to play the next white note, C. It's a bit of a stretch at first, but you'll find you soon get used to it. Here's exercise 126, played through. The technique's exactly the same for the left hand too. Here's exercise 127. And now, exercise 128, in which once again the B's are all flat. Play all 4 exercises in this section over and over again until they sound really smooth and even. Remember too to keep your hands relaxed and in their proper position. Don't let them twist all over the place, or your playing just won't sound right. As we've already said, a major scale can start from any note on the keyboard, just as long as it has the correct sequence of tones and semitones. So far, we've met the scale of C major, which can be played on the white keys alone, and G major, which has one black key, F sharp. Now, we're going to look at the scale of F major. What do we do to produce a major scale starting with the note F? At the bottom of page 148, you can see what happens if you start from F and play along the white keys to the next F along. You'll get a semitone gap between the 4th and 5th notes of the scale, B and C, instead of where you want it, between the 3rd and 4th notes. But we can remedy this quite simply by making the B note in the scale B flat. Now the semitone gaps are where they should be, between the 3rd and 4th and 7th and 8th notes of the scale. So the scale of F major has one black key, B flat, the key between A and B. Exercise 129 gives you a chance to practice the F major scale. And as you can see, each line of music in both clefs starts with a flat sign corresponding to the note B. This B flat key signature tells us that the piece is in F major and that all the Bs are flat, unless otherwise indicated by accidentals within the music itself. You'll find that in the right-hand part, you have to use the thumb under with 4th finger technique that you've just been practicing. Make sure that you play these notes smoothly so that you can't hear where the thumb under actually occurs. Here, now, is the exercise played through for you. You already know the difference between playing with a smooth legato sound, holding each note down as long as you can, and playing with a short, sharp staccato sound. But exercise 130, on pages 150 and 151 of your booklet, asks you to play legato with one hand while you play staccato with the other. Frankly, this isn't at all easy. When you start, one hand will almost certainly try to follow the other. Most probably the hand playing legato will imitate the staccato hand, lifting itself from the keyboard when you don't want it to. Even so, this is an exercise to persevere with. Getting your two hands to work independently of one another is one of the most important parts of learning to play keyboards. And once you've mastered this relatively simple practice piece, you'll find more complicated operations become that much easier to perform. Like the previous exercise, number 130 is in F major. So there's a B-flat key signature at the start of each line of the music, telling you to play B-flat whenever there's a B note written on the stave. Unlike the previous exercise, however, there are a couple of accidentals in the music, which temporarily reverse this rule for the bars in which they occur. The bars concerned are the 5th and the 4th line, and the 4th and the 5th line. In both cases, the Bs in the treble clef have natural signs in front of them, telling you to play the white B key instead of the usual black B-flat key for the whole of that bar. Another point to watch out for is the fingering for the right hand in bars 13 to 15. It's rather tricky, so take it slowly until you're used to it. Also, in bar 15, your left hand has to stretch down to the C below middle C, while the next notes it plays are middle C and the B-flat a tone below it. Try to reach the lower C by stretching your hand to the left, keeping your thumb as close as possible to middle C so that it's ready to play that note. Don't attempt to jump down the keyboard and then back up again with your whole hand, or you'll find you quickly get into a mess. Here's exercise 130 played for you now. Listen carefully so that you know precisely what sort of effect we're after. Now let's run through the chords on page 152 of your booklet. First, the F major chord, F, A and C. In the booklet you'll notice we've given alternative fingerings. Try both and use whichever feels most comfortable. Here's F major with the right hand, and with the left. D minor is made up of F, A and the root note D. With the right hand, and the left. Now G minor, D, the root note G and B flat. Here's the right hand, and the left. B flat major you've met before in lesson 9, but here it is in a different order. F, B flat and D. With the right hand, and the left. C7 is formed by C, E and B flat. Here's the right hand chord, and the left. And finally, another version of C7 with the root note at the top, E, B flat and C. We'll be going into the whole question of how and why a chord can be played different ways later on, so don't worry about it for the moment. Here's the right hand, and the left. Exercise 131 for the right hand has the chord sequence F, D minor, B flat, C7 and back to F. This time we've written out the rhythmic variations in the form that you met them in the previous lesson, using chord names and rhythmic notation. If you can't remember what the symbols mean or how they work, check back now to page 140 of your Lesson 12 booklet. In the first variation, the left hand plays the root note of the chord specified in the first beat of the bar and holds it, while the right hand plays the whole chord on the second beat and again on the third. So, taking the first bar as an example, the left hand plays F on the first beat and holds, while the right hand plays FAC on the second beat and again on the third beat. It sounds like this. In the second variation, the left hand plays the root note as a minim on the first and third beats of each bar, while in between, the right hand plays the notes of the chord as an arpeggio in quavers. Exercise 132 is for the left hand. The chord sequence is F, D minor, G minor, C7 and back to F. In the first variation, the left hand plays the whole chords in crotchets, 4 to a bar. The second variation, also for the left hand alone, is more subtle. The middle two quavers in each bar are tied, making a sound the same length as a crotchet. This is how the variation should go. Our practice piece for this lesson is called Shuttlecocks. Let's start by looking at the rhythm which occurs again and again throughout the piece. You can see it picked out at the top of page 154. When you first meet it, the rhythm will be in the form of a quaver, followed by two tied quavers, followed by another single quaver. Here's how it sounds. 1 and 2 and... Further on, in bar 3, you get the same rhythm written in a different way, as a quaver followed by a crotchet and then another quaver. Since two quavers tied together last the same amount of time as a crotchet, the sound is identical to the previous example. 1 and 2 1. By the way, sorting out rhythms like this is always a lot easier if you count in half beats right from the start. If you look at the music, you can see that it's in F major with a key signature of B flat. This means all the Bs are flat except where natural signs cancel the effect of the key signature. In fact, this happens quite often. So keep an eye open for the natural signs, and don't forget that their effect lasts until the end of the bar. There are also quite a few F sharps in the piece, to which of course the same rule applies. In bars 13 to 16, for example, all the Fs are sharp. But in bar 17, at the top of page 155, you go back to playing F natural again. And don't overlook the repeat signs. The first 8 bars are played twice, and the last bars repeat over and over until the music fades. As usual, pay careful attention to the fingering, and start by practicing hands separately until you're entirely familiar with the notes. When you come to combine hands, don't forget to begin slowly and work up to the correct speed gradually, checking back to the tape as you go to make sure you've got the rhythm right. Here then is the entire piece with keyboard and backing. And now here's the backing alone, leaving you to provide the keyboard part. We'll end this lesson with another set of technical exercises designed to strengthen your fingers and improve the spread of your hands. They're hardly the most exciting pieces in the world, but that isn't the point. Just 5 or 10 minutes a day spent playing them will really make a difference to your technique. All the exercises from 133 to 138 are for arpeggios across a whole octave. Ideally, you should be able to play these arpeggios without moving your hand at all. In other words, relying simply on the spread of your fingers. But some people have smaller hands than others, and for them it's almost impossible to stretch 8 notes up from their thumb to their little finger. In this case, the answer is to move your hands slightly from one side to the other as you go, keeping your arm flexible at all times. As your hands grow or become more supple, you'll probably find that in time you need to do this less and less. You'll notice that there are repeat signs after each bar, reminding you that you can practice any of them over and over again before moving on to the next. In fact, the more times you repeat bars, the better. Here's exercise 133 for the right hand. Exercise 134 is also for the right hand. Now the last exercise for the right hand, number 135. Here's exercise 136, the first of 3 exercises for the left hand. Now, exercise 137. And finally, to end the lesson, exercise 138.